And welcome back to the last bout on track 2 of this 5th annual Wild West Showdown. Tonight, to round things out for track 2, we've gotten rid of the juniors. The kids have gone home, except for those that haven't gone home, but they've taken off their skates at least. We have the Bellingham Roller Betties out of Bellingham, Washington. And they are playing the Rodeo City Rollergirls from Ellensburg, Washington. Apparently fewer people coming across the pass to cheer for Ellensburg than coming down from Bellingham. And that's probably good given the state of the pass right now. Running down the rosters, Rodeo City Rollergirls. Number P is less than .01. Ariel Payne, 45. Lady Colt. Number 2, More Mayhem. 4 Hours of Cialison. Number 8, Hula Sea Nation. 13, Lucy Ballbuster. Number 27, Warpaint Wendy. N30, Repercussion. 33, Demolition Dovey. 229, Permafrost. 313, Trouble and a Paradise. And 500, Kelsey Ya Later. And on the Bellingham side, we've got 00, Issa Hella Vicious. Number 1, Breaker Baker. 13, Sugar Bomb. 14, Ziggy Star Crush. 19, Anna Nasty. 40 is Wendy Bell Tolls. Number 88, Lunatic. Number 193, Rampage. 240, Scarlet Joe Hertzum. 365, Robin Rumble. 542, Miata Smackya. And 1902, Pyroclastic Flow. We will start off with Ziggy Star Crush jamming for Bellingham up against War Paint for the Rodeo City. And Ziggy Star Crush is through first in his lead jammer. Warpaint Wendy working her way to the front, but gets called for the low block, so this will start off on a power jam for Bellingham. And the pivot for Ellensburg, thinking that maybe she was called as well, but she's not. She's back on the track, 4-on-4 full pack. As Warpaint Wendy working her way on the inside, gives Demolition W a little hip check, and she is through. 5 more points, second 5-point pass. All in this power jam, 10-0 currently Bellingham. Ziggy Star Crush working her way up to the front. Pack runs out of room, and they have to let her go 5 more. I think I miscredited which jammer I was looking at a moment ago. Ziggy Star Crush jamming around the outside. Dodges past the final attempt to block her, doesn't get there. 20 points now for Bellingham. And Ziggy Star Crush sees that Warpaint Wendy standing up, calls off the jam, allowing her team to regroup and start off with the power start. And they will send Anna Nasty to the line. One blocker advantage for the Bellingham Roller Betties. And they will back their pack up to the jammer line. And with the whistle, Anna Nasty working her way around to the inside. Now tries the outside. Good defense from the Rodeo City Rollergirls, but not able to hold her back. Anna Nasty is through and is lead jammer. Warpaint Wendy, meanwhile, released from the penalty box just in time to pick up a cut track penalty. And we've got another minute power jam for Bellingham. Anna Nasty takes a little bit of a spill. Cuts back. Her pack is able to slow things down enough. No pack is called. And she is through for 5 more points. Rolling in on her second scoring pass. Ducks the head down, cuts through a gap, picks up 5 more. As the Rodeo City pack back to full strength now. Anna Nasty comes in rather quick. No pack is called, and she is through for another 5. 15 points so far on this jam, extending that lead to 38-0. Bellingham Roller Betties stretching it out with 2 straight power jams. Anna Nasty returning to play. Again, the passive offense able to slow things back down and let her through for 5 more. A 20-point jam, a 20-point jam, and a 23-point jam before it. 43-0. Bellingham stretching it out. And again, they will start off on the power start. sending Breaker Baker, number 1, to the line. And with the whistle, Breaker Baker rolling up to the pack. Pack starting up fairly far forward. Rodeo City lining up at the pivot line. Warpaint Wendy out of the penalty box and engaging the 3 blockers for Bellingham. Finally able to break through and breaks through cleanly. Not lead jammer, however. Lead jammer Breaker Baker for the Bellingham Roller Betties. She engages the pack, hops out to the outside, and picks up 4 big points. 47-0 now. Warpaint Wendy with a nice single skate along the line. Got it a little bit out, fell down, had to recycle back. Now she's coming up against Miata Smackya. And Isabella Vicious at the front, finally able to break through 4 points as the Rodeo City Roller Girls finally getting on the board. But not before Breaker Baker able to pick up another 4 for an 8-4 jam. 51-4 now as Rodeo City finally on the board. And the Rodeo City fan base finally making themselves known. Ziggy Starcrush back on the jammer line for the Bellingham Roller Betties. And she is up against KC later for Rodeo City. Ziggy Starcrush getting bumped out and recycled back, and first lead jammer of the night for Rodeo City as number 500 Kelsey later is lead jammer and engaging dodges around the outside. Nice big door opened up for her by her blockers, and she picks up 4 points, calls off the jam, and that holds Bellingham scoreless. Let me switch these because they're not in the same order as they are on the screen. That's better. Anna Nasty now donning the jammer star for the Bellingham Roller Girls, Roller Betties rather, up against Hula C Nation. Having a birthday today, I've been told. And she will celebrate that birthday by attempting to get lead jammer. Anna Nasty blocked to the infield. She has to recycle back, and happy birthday, Hula C Nation. She is, in fact, lead jammer. However, a couple of her blockers being sent to the box. In fact, 3 of them. We'll see which 2 get there first. It looks like number 4 hours, C. Allison, will be sent back onto the track. Meanwhile, Hula C Nation rolls through, picks up 3 points, calls off the jam, keeping Bellingham off the scoreboard once more, and narrowing that lead down to 40 points now, 51-11. And as we saw earlier, that's just a couple of power jams away, as Bellingham able to rack up 43 points in the first 2 jams of the game. And we got number 193 Rampage for the Bellingham Roller Betties up against Warpaint Wendy for Rodeo City. Rampage trying the inside. Warpaint Wendy trying out, going back to the in. And Rampage is able to sneak around the outside. And she is through clean and is your lead jammer. Warpaint Wendy, meanwhile, recycling all the way back to the back of the pack after she takes a big shoulder to the infield. And she has yet to emerge from the pack cleanly. Rampage, on the other hand, through for 4 big points. Rodeo City 2-pack trying to help break things up, but not quite able to, and that allows Rampage to skate right around the outside and grab the jammer lap point for a 5-point grand slam. Meanwhile, Warpaint Wendy again with another hip out, still yet to emerge from the pack as Rampage laps up for another 5. Both of the Rodeo City blockers now out of the pack. And Warpaint Wendy hands off the jammer star. Jammer star going to the pivot. That's number 33, Demolition Dovey. Demolition Dovey now your scorer. Not lead jammer, however. Lead jammer continues to be Rampage, who wraps around and loops another 4 points before calling off the jam before Demolition Dovey could get to the pack. 23-0 run on that jam. Power jam's definitely taking a toll on the Rodeo City girls as they now trail 74-11.
I was like, oh, he'll show up. He shows up. I got my tracks mixed up. I was waiting for that game to end, and I looked over. I'm like, wait a second, I'm supposed to be.
Wait a minute, I'm over there with that. Breaker Baker jamming for Bellingham Roller Betties up against Trouble and a Paradise for the Rodeo City Roller Girls, and Trouble and a Paradise is through and picks up lead jammer. Second or third time that Rodeo City has managed to snag lead jammer. And unfortunately, a nice hit on Breaker Baker by Hula C Nation at the end, but she got a little too low and gets called for the low block. And that will reduce the pack for Rodeo City down to 2. And Trouble in a Paradise makes a cut to the inside, gets shouldered out, calls off the jam. Does pick up 3 points, I believe. Yes. And that is 14-74 now. Bellingham Roller Betties up by 60. And now I'll welcome my co-announcer, who is now on the correct track.
Yeah, it's fashionably late. Dick Pounder joining you here. Sitting up there waiting for the other game to end to look over, saw you Scott Chicken, and go, wait a second, I'm supposed to be with him.
That's all right. You were in the beer garden, I believe. The Toad whatever beer garden?
Toad's Pizzeria Beer Garden?
Something like that. Toad House, I believe.
Toad House Beer Garden.
They have some lovely beverages for the adults up there.
They do. And some of the Calgary Roller Derby Association girls are up there enjoying far too many and have already emptied my wallet.
Well, now that their day is done, they are allowed to do that. And how did Calgary fare this weekend?
3-0.
Very nice.
Their last game up against, who was it they played? Slaughterhouse. Slaughterhouse actually gave them a good fight, kept the packs going fast, and Calgary struggled, but they did pull off the win by more than a 100-point margin.
Excellent. Glad they didn't travel out for nothing. And we're back with Ziggy Starcrush jamming for Bellingham Roller Buddies against Kelsey Later for the Rodeo City Roller Girls. And Ziggy Stardust dances along the inside line and picks up lead jammer. Very close to the line there, but close enough to the inside that it didn't really matter. And she whips around on the inside of the turn and racks up 4 points. 5 points. As the jam ref realizes that, yes, the helmet had been padded.
And a big hit to the inside. She saw that hole, took it, got hit, but managed to keep her feet, making it through for another 5 big points for Bellingham.
Meanwhile, Kelsey Later struggling to get through the rather aggressive Bellingham defense. Bellingham maintaining a good, strong 4-wall.
Ziggy Starcrush trying to switch it up, taking the outside line on that one for another grand slam.
And a big shot from Sugar Bomb knocks Kelsey Later out to the inside, and she has to recycle back, and that lets Ziggy Starcrush whip through for another 5 points.
Look at a crushing defense by Bellingham, just really holding Kelsey Later back and allowing Ziggy Starcrush another 5 points.
And just towards the end, Kelsey Later trying to pass the star on, but time had run out. Hula C Nation not able to jam at that point. They will instead send Warpaint Wendy back to the line, where she will jam against Anna Nasty for the Bellingham Roller Betties.
And right now, Bellingham sitting at the Wayne Gretzky, number 99, 14 for Rodeo City. Canadian jokes.
I think I've heard of Wayne Gretzky, but I would never have known what his number was. And Anna Nasty is through and is lead jammer. Warpaint Wendy running into trouble at the front as Miata Smacker reverses direction to direct traffic and then flips back around. Bit of a shove from one of her Rodeo City compatriots, and that finally sends Warpaint Wendy out through the pack. And while she's doing that, Anna Nasty engaging. Skates past Demolition W, who is too far forward. Picks up 4 points, calls off the jam.
All right, Trouble and a Paradise lining up for Rodeo City up against Breaker Baker for Bellingham. And, Rodeo City trying to form that tight wall, hold Breaker Baker back. Trouble and a Paradise fighting through that black wall, getting knocked to the outside, being forced to recycle back to the back of the pack. Breaker Baker pushing that past that 20-foot mark and making her way through for lead gem.
And that was number 40, Wendy Beltoles, getting called for the penalty. And picking up a skate to the cheek, I think, as she fell down. Adding insult to penalty. 4 points for Bellingham on that jam. 0 for Rodeo City. 107-14 now. As Rodeo City sends Kelsey later to the jammer line up against Ziggy Starcrush for the Bellingham Roller Betties.
And we'll see how Rodeo City fares. 3-on-2 pack advantage for blockers. Given the advantage on that wall, see if Kelsey, see you later, can break through that 2-wall, but no, Ziggy Starcrush breaks through the 3 and gets lead jam as Kelsey, you later, finally makes it through on her initial pass.
Bellingham doing an excellent job with the 2-wall and the sort of reverse hand-holding position of directing the blocker into the oncoming jammer. Meanwhile, Ziggy Starcrush rolling through and picking up 4 points. Kelsey later re-engaging, knocked to the infield, recycles back, and heads out to do it again.
Oh, big hit to the inside by
Miata Smakia of the Bellingham Roller Betties, delivering that nice shoulder.
As Ziggy Starcrush gets knocked to the outside, recycled to the back of the pack. Kelsey later picking up 4 points for Rodeo City.
And both packs now at full strength. But Ziggy Starcrush breaks through, grabs her 4, calls off the jam, but not before Kelsey later able to pick up 3. So a slight advantage there for Bellingham. 1:15 now to 21 as we drop down to about 14 minutes to go in this period. Anna Nasty on the jammer line for Bellingham up against Warpaint Wendy for Rodeo City.
Some 5-on-5 action, empty penalty box along that last 4.
Lots of shouldering going on as they engage the pack and try to push through to the front. Several of the Rodeo City blockers going down, but Anna Nasty shakes that off, gets up, skates out to the front where her blockers are. They let her through, and she is lead jammer.
Warpaint Wendy still struggling against that wall of black up front, pushing her way through, trying to get that 20-foot nice bridging by Bellingham. The front skinner under 193 Rampage falling down, letting her get through on her initial pass. In the meantime, Anna Nasty goes through, picks up 4 points, and calls off the jam.
Bellingham doing a great job of assigning practically someone to the jammer to be that last line of defense. Just hold on to her as long as they can, stretch things out, keeping the Rodeo City Roller Girls from picking up any points. Go ahead.
Once again, we've got Breaker Baker up against Trouble in a Paradise. So once you figure that one out, it actually rolls off the tongue
It
quite
does roll off the
nicely.
tongue nicely. Reading it was a little tricky, but fortunately the coach was there to clarify it for me ahead of the game. Otherwise, it would have been messy. Trouble in a Paradise picking up a back block, however. And that is going to be trouble for Rodeo City, as that leaves Breaker Baker free on the power jam, but not lead jammer.
Yeah, it looks like she got a no pass, no penalty, so she passed someone who was down out of bounds, so she doesn't get the cut for that, but also cannot get lead, and she's through with 5 big points.
And we will roll this jam to its natural conclusion in 1 minute and 24 seconds, much of which will be this power jam, as Breaker Baker rolling through for another 5.
Looks like a 4-on-2 pack advantage for Bellingham as well, as 2 of Rodeo City's blockers sitting in the box, making easy work for Breaker Baker to get through and pick up another 5 points.
Very tough to keep the jammer back when there's only 2 of you. They will get a little bit of relief as a third blocker comes up.
And doing a little bit better job slowing her down, knocked her out, but she's right back up, and Baker right through for 5 more points. Attempting to call it off, not realizing that she doesn't have lead.
And she re-engages the pack, and they are able to throw her to the ground, but she pops back up. And as much as Repercussion tries, can't keep her in the back. Meanwhile, Trouble in a Paradise out of the penalty box and back engaged with the Bellingham pack, and that means things are starting to move. As Rodeo City slowing down to try and free their blocker, but not before Bellingham able to take her out. And then bridging to the back of the pack, recycling her well back right at the beginning of turn 3.
A really nice job of bridging there to force Trouble in the Paradise as far back as they could possibly push her. And that was the full 2 minutes as Breaker Baker picks up another 4 points.
And no points for Trouble in a Paradise, not able to clear the pack and re-loop. She sort of got through once, but got bumped back out, had to recycle. So now we will send Kelsey later to the jammer line for Rodeo City against Rampage for the Bellingham Roller Betties. And both jammers trying to find some place in the middle of the pack to get through. Neither having much luck. Rampage almost through, but tripped herself up. And Kelsey later finds a line on the inside and is through and is lead jammer.
Oh, and Rampage dodging that last hit by a Demolition Doggy. And pulling through. But Kelsey later, of course, with lead and the advantage and the ability to call that off.
Choosing to stay in and rack up some more points, although Rampage has rolled in. And Rampage has cleared the pack now, but Kelsey later still struggling. Takes a big shoulder from Ziggy Starcrush. That knocks her to the infield and recycles her back as the pack had caught up and passed her. And she finally does call it off, knowing that Rampage was getting close to engaging. 3 points for Rodeo City.
Slight advantage for Bellingham on that. 4-3 are the points on that jam. As we've got Anna Nasty lining up for Bellingham up against Warpaint Wendy for Rodeo City.
And the Bellingham Roller Betties taking a timeout. And that's as good a time as any to mention the after party. After party is coming up after the end of the last game on track 1. Last game on track 1 will start at 7:30. Doesn't look like they've started yet. It's the Lava City Roller Dolls versus the Emerald City Roller Girls. Once that's over, we're all heading to McLeod's. McLeod's 2901 Perry Avenue, number 13. In spite of the number 13, I still don't think it's an apartment. I'm pretty certain it's a bar. That is in Bremerton. If you need a zip code for your GPS system, 98310.
And if you are staying at the Baymont Inn, they will be having shuttles going from the Baymont Inn to McLeod. So you can be responsible and not drink and drive.
There is no law against drinking and riding on a bus.
None whatsoever.
Unless you get too rowdy and they charge you with it, but that's a different story.
People don't get rowdy when they drink, do they?
I don't know. You're from Canada. You tell me. We certainly do down here. I don't know how you work it up there.
Oh, it's far too cold to go out, so we just drink at home.
Certainly this time of year. And then in the summer, it's all too many black flies, right?
Something like that.
And a nasty jamming for the Bellingham Roller Betties against Warpaint Wendy for the Rodeo City Roller Girls.
And nice job by the Rodeo City Wall to knock Ananasti out and recycle her back, giving Warpaint Wendy lead jam. Ananasti, though, hot on her quads, giving chase. And we're ending up with a micro pack again as the blockers head to the box. Warpaint Wendy making her way through, picking up a quick 4 points and calling off that jam.
And Lunatic getting called on a penalty is a must skate this jam because there was nowhere for her to sit. So it will just be her and Sugar Bomb blocking for Breaker Baker and the Bellingham Roller Betties.
And it looks like Hula C Nation sitting in there for Rodeo City. So 3-on-2 pack advantage for Rodeo City.
And they've sent Kelsey later to the line. She finds an opening on the inside, almost able to get through, but not quite before the door is closed. Meanwhile, Breaker Baker working to the outside, takes a shoulder out, has to recycle back as well, where she runs into a couple of blockers. Shrugs off a hit by Demolition Dovey, and she is your lead jammer. And meanwhile, looks like Lunatic able to both grab the cut track penalty on Kelsey later and also have a seat open up for her in the penalty box. So she timed that hit perfectly.
Timing is everything.
And on the power jam, Breaker Baker already through with one 5-point pass, comes in for a second.
As Ziggy Starcrush makes her way out of the box, Breaker Baker finding that hole right up at the front, just rolling off those hits through for another 5 big points for Bellingham.
That extends the Bellingham lead to 161-28. As Breaker Baker comes into the pack, goes to the ground, gets back up, now surrounded by white. As Rodeo City struggling to keep her down, Hula C Nation tries to bridge. Too little, too late. Breaker Baker breaks out, calls off the jam.
I believe she picked up 5 points on that one.
I believe so. Scoreboard currently showing 166-28. We'll see if they adjust it as the jam ref comes over. Jam ref confirms, and we will send Rampage to the line for Bellingham, while Kelsey later continues to sit in the penalty box. Rampage trying to find room up the middle, notices there's an opening to the outside, sprints over to take advantage, and is through and is your lead jammer.
Really nice job of holding that outside line, stumbling a bit, but again, edges are important. She just dug in that edge on the one skate, held the line, and got through.
Kelsey later and Lunatic both released at the same time. Lunatic yelling at her defense that the jammer's coming in right as she got to the pack, but Kelsey later able to find some space around the outside. Breaks through for her initial pass. Rampage picks up 4 points on her scoring pass and calls off the jam, an even 4-0 run there.
So, well, I know with this second to last game of this weekend, I myself am feeling a little tired. I can imagine how the refs and the skaters are feeling.
I cannot imagine, especially the refs, since I'm not sure how many games they're playing, but I'm guessing it's more than even the teams.
So here we've got
Ziggy Starcrush jamming for the Bellingham Roller Betties. It's not Kelsey.
up against,
I believe that's number, that's Lady Colt 45 for the Rodeo City Roller Girls. Couldn't see the number till she whipped past me because I was too busy looking at refs earlier instead of looking at the jammers. That violates some sort of roller derby announcer rules, I'm sure. 4 points for Ziggy Starcrush on that pass. As Lady Colt also pushes her way through and picks up 4 of her own. But Ziggy Starcrush finds an opening on the outside. Rolls through on her second pass. Demolition Dovey not able to hold her down. as the last line of defense. And Ziggy Starcrush gets that right foot just over the line. She will go for a cutting of the track, and we have a power jam for Rodeo City.
And Bellingham taking that front wall, trying to control the front of that pack and build that wall, prevent, who did we have there? Number 45, Lady Colt from getting through, but she fights her way through, picking up 5 points, a grand slam for Rodeo City.
And Rodeo City playing the passive-aggressive offense, lining up slow, stopping the pack, and then trying to open a door for her. Lady Colt working her way past Miata Smakia. Sugar Bomb bridging as far as she can, and then coming in to lay down the hip. But unfortunately, a little too far ahead. She gets called with the out-of-play penalty.
Lady Colt was crawling to the outside, thinking that she had to do that to prevent the cut, but with the Sugar Bomb getting that out-of-play penalty, then Lady Colt was free to get up and continue. Nice jam by Rodeo City on that one. 14 points to the 8 points by Bellingham.
And nice to see for once a power jam pack that was actually moving a bit, and offensive blockers hitting people to try and knock them out of the way. C. Allison jamming for Rodeo City as they start off on the power start. Pushing her way to the front, gets bumped to the infield by Miata Smakia. Then finds an opening to the out. Dodging. Miata Smakia still trying to slow her down. A little positional blocking, just trying to keep her back until the pack can catch up. Whips around to do the chest-to-chest. And that allows Rampage to sneak through on the outside and pick up lead jammer out of the penalty box.
I believe that's actually Ziggy Starcrush. We haven't gotten that updated yet, so...
Thank you for the correction.
Oh, not a problem. Our audience needs to know these things.
They do. Ziggy Starcrush rips through 4 points. Meanwhile, C. Allison bumped to the infield and takes a fairly hard fall, has to work her way back up. She is recycled back to the back, and that allows Ziggy Starcrush to whip through again, pick up 5 more points. Lunatic with that reverse position blocking, digging in the toe stops and trying to stop her. See Allison throwing shoulders at her and not quite able to knock her off her line.
Now with a 4-on-2 pack advantage for Bellingham, the two Rodeo City blockers are struggling a bit to try to break up that pack and allowing Ziggy Starcrush 2 more grand slams on that on those.
And a beautiful corner apex jump on that last one to work her way past the end of the pack. And on that pass, she just rolls on past. As again, the Rodeo City blockers having a devil of a time getting away from that 4-wall of Bellingham roller Betties.
A nice job by Rodeo City to knock Ziggy Starcrush to the inside and recycle her to the back, but Ziggy Starcrush right back up, allowing that jam to expire and go for the full 2 minutes. 27-point jam by Ziggy Starcrush.
And right at the end, Miata Smakia trying to get to the front, cut a little bit of the track, and she knew it as soon as she went through. Rolled right back around, got the call, went over, sat down in the box. Warpaint Wendy now jamming for Rodeo City against Anna Nasty for the Bellingham Roller Betties. Anna Nasty dancing along the inside line, but Warpaint Wendy taking the outside, picks up lead jammer.
Just putting on the Jets to try to pick up points. Probably a quick hit it and quit it. Good job. Finds that hole on the outside, goes through, calls it off. But Anna Nasty also picked up 3 on that.
Anna Nasty right behind her the whole way. So that was going to be quick either way. And that takes us to the half. At the half, Bellingham Roller Betties 208 to the Rodeo City Rollergirls 50. We will be back in 9 minutes and 48 seconds.
This time I won't be late.
And as we do our equipment checks for the second half, let's rerun our rosters. For the Bellingham Roller Betties in black jerseys, number 00, Issa Hella Vicious. Number 1, Breaker Baker. 13, Sugar Bomb. 14, Ziggy Star Crush. Number 19, Anna Nasty. 40 is Wendy Bell Tolls. Number 88, Lunatic. 193 is Rampage. 240, Scarlet Joe Hertzum. 365, Robin Rumble. Number 542, Miata Smackya, and 1902 is Pyroclastic Flow.
And for the Rodeo City Rollergirls, we got P is less than 01, Ariel Payne, 45, Lady Colt, 2, Moore Mayhem, 4, Cialison, 8, Hula Sea Nation, number 13, Lucy Ballbuster, number 27, Warpaint Wendy, and 30, Repercussion, 33, Demolition Dovey, 229, Permafrost, 313, Trouble in a Paradise, and number 500, Kel See Ya Later.
And speaking of Kel See Ya Later, she is on the jammer line for the Rodeo City Roller Girls in white tops. Up against Rampage for the Bellingham Roller Betties, 208 for Bellingham, 50 points for the Rodeo City Girls out of Ellensburg, Washington. And the pack lining up at the pivot line again.
I've seen that quite a few times this weekend. It's refreshing to see.
Hopefully it's a new trend. And then we won't have to say how refreshing it is.
Rampage making it through, getting the lead jam for Bellingham. Kel See Ya Later fighting her way through the front of the pack on her initial pass as Rampage storms around the outside, picking up 4 points for Bellingham.
Rampage taking advantage of the Rodeo City blockers watching their jammer and helping her get through to find a space on the inside, or outside rather, to break through on her own. Kel See Ya Later back engaged with the pack, breaks through, picking up 4 points.
Rampage hot on her quads, picking up 4 of her own. Looks like she's giving chase, going to try to get that jammer point. Kel See Ya Later getting that booty out front, trying to stop her, making way through, picking up 4 points for Rodeo City.
Excellent work by the Rodeo City defense, closing the door on Rampage right after Kel See Ya Later made it through, and that stopped her from getting that extra point for the jammer pass.
And she did pick up 2 on that pass before she called off the jam.
And that takes it to 10-8. Bellingham advantage, 218 now to 58, as Warpaint Wendy dons the jammer star for Rodeo City against Breaker Baker for the Bellingham Roller Betties. And Breaker Baker breaks through first. She is lead jammer. And the pack's reforming now 3-on-3 as more mayhem sent to the penalty box. And Breaker Baker sent out for the back block. That will lead to a power jam for Rodeo City. And the Bellingham blockers backing Warpaint Wendy up as far as they can.
Warpaint Wendy was slowly coming to the back of that pack, taking a look and see what her path would be, and makes it almost all the way through, gets knocked to the inside, but back in. 3-on-1 pack advantage as Bellingham runs into a little bit of penalty trouble, allowing Warpaint Wendy to get through and pick up 5 big points.
It's a hell of vicious with a big shoulder there, but picking up the penalty on it, has to cycle 2. Nowhere for her to sit, so she rolls back around and out into the pack. As Warpaint Wendy coming through on her 3rd scoring pass. Now sitting with 9 points. Out of play is called. Sugar Bomb not able to slow her down anymore. 5 more for Rodeo City. And the pack again moving slowly, but definitely moving forward. As the 2 wall at the front, no pack is called, but not before they knock Warpaint Wendy to the infield.
Bellingham was trying to speed up that pack, but Rodeo City doing a nice job just hanging back, slowly breaking it apart to get that no pack. as Breaker Baker gets out of the penalty box and through on a scoring pass, picking up 4 points.
And Issa Helovicius finally has space open up for her, so she reports to the box. 19-4, Rodeo City with a definite advantage on that power jam. That brings them to 77 to 222 for the Bellingham Roller Betties. Bellingham will send Ziggy Starcrush to the line, where she will face off with Kelsia later. And a pack advantage now for Bellingham as they have 3 blockers on the track to only 2 for the Rodeo City girls. Hulassie Nation bumping Ziggy Starcrush out and then backing her up, and that allows Kelsia later to break through as lead jammer. And more penalty trouble for Bellingham as their pivot Lunatic sent out to the penalty box. And that will even up the pack at 2 apiece as both jammers whip through, but Kelsia later picking up an extra point because she manages to pass Ziggy Starcrush before Miata Smakia gives her a big shoulder welcome into the pack. Welcome to the middle of the track as well, and she will recycle back. And that lets Ziggy Starcrush break through for 4 before Kelsia later finally escapes the pack, calls off the jam. But again, Ziggy Starcrush picking up points of her own. And it looks like the jam refs confirming on the points, and we have a timeout by Rodeo City. Timeout, another good chance to promote our friends here at the Kitsap Public Facilities District. Slaughter County Roller Vixens, our wonderful hosts for the weekend, would like to thank the Kitsap Public Facilities District for helping to make this event possible, for having this lovely building that we can put 2 tracks in and allowing us to take over their space.
So Rodeo City coming out strong in the second half. Still a large gap to close, but it looks like they're doing a nice job trying to close that gap. Of course, all these games are sanctioned, so every point counts for rankings.
That it does. Bellingham currently sitting 234 to 86 for Rodeo City. As we come out of the timeout with Anna Nasty jamming for the Bellingham Roller Betties against Lady Colt, number 45 for the Rodeo City Roller Girls. Lady Colt breaking to the outside, pushes the pack far enough ahead that they have to let her go, and she is your lead jammer. Anna Nasty thinking maybe there was a penalty involved, but there isn't. Guardian says, no, you stay here, but you're not lead jammer. And Lady Colt bumped to the outside, not able to get the toe stops down fast enough, slides over that inside corner, and that is cutting of the track. And she did so just as she was trying to call off the jam. And you can't call the jam off when you're already been penalized.
No, definitely can't do that. It's frowned upon, and usually the refs will just look at you like you have 2 heads.
And we don't want that. So we will be going the full 2 minutes. 5 points there for Anna Nasty. And Anna Nasty will bop to the inside again. Rodeo City trying to close that gap up, but not quite able to get there in time as they only have 2 blockers on the track. Hard to cover that full width with 2 people.
Yeah, definitely. That's all you can do is rely on your agility to kind of cut back and forth. But it looks like they drew a cut track on that one. So when she sits, that will release Lady Colt. And then Rodeo City will continue on this power jam. It will still go for the full 2 minutes.
And the scoreboard time a bit off. So we will just wait for the whistle in the middle because that's the time that really matters.
There you go. There it is.
There we have it. That is the reason we keep 2 clocks. Just in case one of them screws up. Hopefully the other doesn't. And we will rework the lineups and confirm all the scores. But we got 24 minutes to go in the game. Currently scoreboard showing 244 for Bellingham to 86 for the Rodeo City Rollergirls. Rodeo City sending Kelsey later to the jammer line to start off this power start.
A little bit more pivot line love, which gives the jammer a little bit more time to figure out where that hole is going to be that she's going to squeeze through.
Unfortunately, Bellingham doing a great job of minimizing the size of that squeezeness, which makes it harder to squeeze through, but she does finally. Catches it as Miatasmakia trying to reposition her feet, opens it up just enough for her to break through. They were just getting to the edge of the engagement zone anyway. And both packs now back at full strength. Kelsey later trying for the inside, gets hip to the infield, has to recycle back to the back. Thinks maybe she's got a line, one skater left to beat. Is a hella vicious coming up to help out and then stops back to bridge. And finally through with the 5 points.
And we now have an empty penalty box, so we got some 5-on-5 derby happening as Ananasi squeezes through on her initial pass. Kelsey later getting knocked to the inside, being recycled to the back. Ananasi through, picking up 4 big points for Bellingham.
Kelsey later with the lucky fall, which I got to wonder sometimes when those falls, when you're knocked into the infield corner, whether you just fall down automatically because you know you're going to slide through if you stay on your skates, and better to slide through on your heels and on your rear and then crawl back out of bounds than pick up that cut track. Either way, it worked out well. She stays on the track and is now fighting hard against Isahella Vicious, who's throwing a shoulder to her. Back to the infield and back to the back of the pack she goes.
And Bellingham loses another blocker. Miatasmakia going to the box for a high block.
But Anna Nasty finally able to roll her way through and pick up those 5 points. As Kelsey later rolls through for 4 of her own and finally calls off the jam.
And nice job by Rodeo City to close up that gap right at the end of that jam as it was being called off, preventing Ananasi from picking up those few points before that 4th whistle.
They're definitely doing a good job occasionally of shutting that inside line down too. There was a nice piece of offensive blocking, holding the Bellingham blocker to the infield and allowing Ananasi the Rodeo City jammer to break around the outside. We've now got number 27 Warpaint Wendy on the jammer line for Rodeo City. And she breaks through and is your lead jammer. And coming up behind her and finally breaking through is Breaker Baker. As the pack speeds up, Bellingham giving chase. And finally have to let Warpaint Wendy through.
And a quick hit it and quit it. 4 points for Rodeo City. I believe that will get them up to the century mark. Indeed it does. 101 for Rodeo City, 261 for Bellingham.
So 160-point gap, not insurmountable. And Rodeo City certainly doing a good job of taking charge a little bit more this half than they were in the first. Not running into quite as many jammer penalties and opening up a beautiful hole on the inside for Kelsey later, allowing her to break through and pick up lead jammer. Meanwhile, defensively, they knock Ziggy Starcrush to the outside and recycle her back, and that allows Kelsey later to pick up a little pace and also to pick up a high blocking from Scarlett Jo Hertzum. Scarlett bringing the shoulder a little bit too high. Can't come up and hit the head.
Kelsey later through the pack, picking up 4 points. Ziggy Starcrush, though, on her quads, picking up 4 of her own. Penalty trouble again for both teams. 3-on-2. Kelsey later busts through that pack, picks up 4, and Ziggy Starcrush held to 2 on that last pass.
Kelsey later doing a great job of dodging around the oncoming block from the Bellingham Roller Betties. swooped in, allowed the Bellingham player to kind of overshoot into the infield, and then squeeze through a little gap between her own blockers to pick up those points and emerge from the pack. Anna Nasty now on the jammer line for the Bellingham Roller Betties against Hula C Nation, the birthday girl for Rodeo City. Hula C Nation with a nice sort of pirouette move around Lunatic. Gets her out of the pack and picks up lead jammer. And lead power jammer now as Anna Nasty sent to the box for, I believe that was an out-of-play block. Nope.
Skating out of bounds.
Nope. Oh, see, now he's testing me on hand signals. It was an out-of-bounds block. That's what I said the first time.
That's what he said first.
These referees are messing with my head. I just tested on those hand signals. I think I know what that one means. But nobody in the audience cares about that. They care about Hula C Nation racking up 5 more points on a Grand Slam. And that is 10 Power Jam points for Rodeo City. And they will re-engage. She tries to one-foot it along the line, but can't quite maintain. Goes to her knees, falls out of bounds, has to back all the way up as Bellingham recycles and rolls and bridges. And finally gets her back to the outside of turn 2.
And there's Hula C Nation right through for 5 big points for Rodeo City, our Grand Slam.
Gets a nice little offensive assist block from Lady Colt. And sees that Anna Nasty was coming back in, calls off the jam. 15-0 run for Rodeo City, taking them to 125 to 267. And Bellingham will send Breaker Baker to the jammer line against Warpaint Wendy for Rodeo City.
Both jammers quick off that line. Warpaint Wendy with a bit of an advantage as Breaker Baker falls down at the back of the pack, but Breaker Baker right back up through the inside line, picks up lead jam.
Breaker Baker dancing that line beautifully on the toe stops. And Warpaint Wendy finally throws a little shoulder to Miata Smack Ya, and out she is. But Breaker Baker into the pack first, struggling at the front, trying to get through her own skaters as well as the defense, which she does, picking up 4 points.
Warpaint Wendy getting a hard time at the back by Wendy Bottles. Sorry, Wendy Beltolls.
And Warpaint Wendy almost in and then falls again, has to crawl back out of bounds. This time behind Sugar Bomb, who had bridged back.
Sugar Bomb with those quick hits, just knocking her inch by inch, trying to get her to the inside. As Breaker Baker makes another pass, 5 points for Bellingham.
And Bellingham now speeding up the pack as they've been doing much of the evening. As Warpaint Wendy passes off the jammer star to Repercussion. Repercussion now fighting at the front. Throwing the little sternum on sternum. Finally breaks through, but not before Breaker Baker able to lap her and pick up that jammer point.
And now Repercussion hitting that wall of black. Breaker Baker through 4 big points and calling off that jam. What I am noticing though about Bellingham compared to the first half, they did a really good job going on the half, talking about what they needed to do, and they're actually defensively and offensively coming out much stronger. Always good to see the teams learn a little bit from where they were having a little bit of trouble and coming out a lot stronger in the second half. I'm sure their next game they'll look at some video and be even better.
That they will. Kelsey later looking for an opening around the outside, can't find it, breaks back to the in, takes a heavy shoulder from Miata Smack Ya, and she is knocked to the ground, and that allows Ziggy Star Crush to cut around the outside and pick up lead jammer. Lead jam again for the Bellingham Roller Betties. Meanwhile, Kelsey later Again, hoping for an opening, not quite getting it, but does stretch the pack out far enough that they have to let her go.
She's got a nice little clear there from Demolition Dovey that got her to the point where she could draw that out of play and get herself through that pack. In the meantime, Ziggy Starcrush picking up 4 points for Bellingham.
And Kelsey later cycled to the infield, knocked into the inner area of the track, the inner sanctum. Has to cycle back out. Demolition Dovey takes a hard hit to the outfield, but she is choosing to stay and maintain the things while she gets her breath back and is back up on her feet.
Kelsey later with a little bit of defensive jamming, trying to take out Ziggy Starcrush. Ziggy Starcrush just braces for that hit and knocks Kelsey later down.
And Kelsey later through the pack. Lunatic giving chase, not able to get her. Demolition Dovey choosing to return to the bench. Clearly having either equipment issues or getting a little bit banged up, but not wanting to stop things. Ziggy Starcrush breaks through the pack, calls off the jam, but not before Kelsey later able to pick up 4 more points for Rodeo City.
It was a pretty long jam, and it was only a 3-point advantage for Bellingham on that. 17 points on that jam for them, 12 points for Rodeo City.
Rodeo City, as you said earlier, really coming out of the half with a regroup and reworking their attacks, really. Just playing a much stronger game this second half than they did in the first.
Definitely. I think I was just a victim there of announcer math. I believe I just said 3-point advantage, 17 to 12.
That would be 5. But
points.
Still, it is an odd number anyway. It's close to 3. So the referee just clarifying that number 333 was sent back to the bench, Demolition Dovey, 33. Because she had fallen to the ground, the ref wanted to make sure she wasn't hurt and sent her back to her bench rather than having her come back into play.
Right now we've got Hula C Nation up against Anna Nasty. Hula C Nation almost making her way through that inside line, getting knocked in. She might have been okay, but to be safe, she recycled herself to the back of the pack, which was a good thing because she's through first and picks up lead jam.
Meanwhile, Anna Nasty having all kinds of trouble with the front 2 or 3 of the Rodeo City Rollergirls. And Lady Colt being called with the cut track.
As Hula C Nation makes her way through, picks up 4 more big points for Rodeo City. Anna Nasty fighting her way through the front, picking up 4 of her own.
And pack slowing down in turn 2. Hula C Nation realizes that Anna Nasty coming back up, calls off the jam.
It was a 6-4 point advantage on that one. She picked up another 2 before she called it off. Before Anna Nasty hit the back of that pack, could pick up any more points.
And it looks like we had another penalty on a Bellingham skater. I believe that's Rampage that's over. Called on a illegal procedure of some form.
Breaker Baker out there against a Warpaint Wendy. Warpaint Wendy doing a good job pushing up at the front wall there, trying to make her way through, getting knocked to the inside, right back in before the cut could be drawn. But then we've got Miata knocking her to the inside, forcing her to the back, allowing Breaker Baker to get through with the lead jam.
And Warpaint Wendy finally able to push Miata Smack You far enough away from the pack that she has to let her go. But Breaker Baker coming in on her scoring pass. No pack is called. Demolition Dovey has to let her go. And that is 4 points for the Bellingham Roller Betties. As Warpaint Wendy breaks through the pack. And the box begins to fill up again. 3-on-2 pack advantage for Bellingham as Breaker Baker breaks on through to the other side of the pack where there are 4 points waiting for her. Warpaint Wendy trying to dance around the outside, successfully does so.
Some nice toe-stop dancing, just hugging that line, pushing her way through, almost dodging that last hit, but going down.
Taking a big shoulder from Rampage, having to catch her breath. Chooses to pass the star off to M30. That's a repercussion. And in all of that, Breaker Baker rolls on through as well. And it looks like Repercussion picking up a cut of the track. And that will put Bellingham on the power jam to start off. .334 to 154 now, Bellingham lead. As we got about 7.5 minutes left in the game. We'll ask the crowd the question you're always supposed to ask. Is everyone having a good time? Did we all enjoy our Wild West Showdown weekend? Are we going to come back next year? All right, maybe they're not.
Only one guy's coming back next year.
For all we know, he lives here. Like in the building. Ziggy Starcrush jamming on the power jam for the Bellingham Roller Betties. Finally breaks her way past Demolition Dovey and is the lead jammer. 3-on-4 pack. And she skates right through after the door is opened for her by Sugar Bomb.
So a nice bit of offensive blocking to clear that space and create that out of play. Now with no pack, the Rodeo City Girls are forced to let Ziggy Starcrush through, picking up another 5 points.
And Sugar Bomb landing on just the right amount of shoulder on that hit. Almost looked like it could have been called as a back block, but not in the back. She had the shoulder around to the front, and that is legal.
And Repercussion out of the box, making it through, I believe that was a scoring pass. And now she's hitting the front of that pack, pushing it forward, going to try to get that out of play. And Sugar Bomb and is a hella vicious.
Trying to hold her back, but she does finally break through and picks up those 4 points. But Ziggy Starcrush rolling in right behind her with 4 of her own. These points are not right. And Repercussion re-engaging the pack again, bounces off. It's a hella vicious. Breaks out with 4 more.
And Ziggy Starcrush making it through and picking up 3 of her own.
And we will reload with Rampage jamming for the Bellingham Roller Betties against Kelsey later. And the officials will take a timeout, presumably to reset things on the scoreboard.
It seems we're having some technical difficulties with the scoreboard clock, which is confusing us poor announcers because we rely on that far too much.
That we do. We should get like a GoPro camera on the watch that the score person in the middle is holding and then just
a little monitor
project
here.
That somewhere. We'll get Chris Hunter on that. I'm sure he can work out how to make that work.
All right, now that we got that jam clock working properly again, a little bit under 5 minutes, we have Rampage up against Kel. See you later, Rampage. Nice little duck move, bean dip as I like to call it, around the outside and picking up lead jam.
Kelsey later struggling at the front of the pack. She's got Miata Smack Ya to beat and does not do so. Meanwhile, big impact at the back of the pack as Anna Nasty, rolling back, runs into the pivot for Rodeo City.
And Kelsey later being sent to the box for a cutting penalty, allowing Rampage out there as the lone jammer on this power jam.
And Bellingham doing a good job of opening the door for her with some offensive blocking. Almost able to knock her down was number 8 Hula C Nation, but not quite able to get up there in time. And 5 more points for Rampage and the Bellingham Roller Betties. No pack called. They have to let Rampage go. 5 more, taking her to 20 for this jam. 380 to 162 now. And the Bellingham fan base goes crazy.
A nice hit by Hula C Nation, knocking Rampage out. Rampage from her back right in front of the announcer table calls off the jam.
Figuring, why get up again when I can call off the jam, go sit down for a bit, and let someone else take this abuse. Breaker Baker will be donning the Jammer Star as we roll to just over 3 minutes. And another official timeout is called. And we will take this official timeout to thank our friends at Blaze Streaming Media. If you're watching us on the internet, it's because Blaze Streaming Media is there. They're there behind the curtain behind us, running all sorts of wires and Ethernet things that make all the video and all the audio go out into the world. Online broadcast of the bouts provided by Blaze Streaming Media. Thanks to them.
I'm sure most of the folks up in Alberta are actually very happy about that right now, because I know they were really looking forward to watching the Greater Edmonton Juniors this weekend, and also checking out Calgary Roller Derby's WFTDA debut weekend.
And the Greater Calgary girls had a lovely debut weekend, I understand. And the people in Edmonton probably had a fine time because they were able to stay inside and not outside where they would freeze to death instantly.
Exactly. I believe everyone was doing a dial-a-bottle where you phone up and you have the booze delivered so someone else can suffer the cold and you can feed your alcoholism.
That is an impressive service. You Canadians think of everything. Is it cold enough there now that when you spit, it freezes before it hits the ground?
Well, it wasn't when I left, but I hear it is now.
So the officials during the timeout discussing the severity of the high block that was assessed to number 19, Anna Nasty. They determined it was just a plain old high block. She will sit her minute, and that is that. Breaker Baker donning the Jammer Star as we come out of the official timeout once they've got all their officialness done. And Kelsey later still in the penalty box for the Rodeo City Roller Girls.
I think we should get a big round of applause for the refs for this weekend. They've done a great job of keeping these games flowing, keeping us announcers informed as to what's going on so we can let you know. And they've skated a whole lot. They're starting to get a bit of a glazed look, but still able to pay attention and make the right calls.
And a big hand for the non-skating officials, the NSOs, many of whom I understand have a horrible case of writer's cramp after this weekend. Way too many pencils being gripped too tightly. They're all going to go to work on Monday and have to do ergonomic stretches and whatnot.
I believe that's what Thurston's doing right now for us, some ergonomic stretching.
That's the Thurston Gore Gun Show is what that is.
So my wife took a picture of Thurston Gore earlier when he was wearing his white suit and pink hat, and she hashtagged it saying, "Winning all the things."
Somebody has to win all the things.
All right, look. Back to roller derby.
3 minutes and 4 seconds to go in the bout. Official timeout lasted longer than that. And with that whistle, we are off. Breaker Baker trying to find a gap in that pack. But the Rodeo City girls shoving each other into it to try and plug the gap, not able to. And Breaker Baker is through and is the lead jammer. And as she approaches on her scoring pass, wobbles a little bit, lulling the defense into a false sense of complacency and able to dance around the inside and pick up 4 points. 4 points because Kelsey later out of the penalty box and now working on her initial pass. Miata Smakius stretching the back as far as she can, but finally has to let her go.
And Breaker Baker making another scoring pass on that and picking up another 4 points for Bellingham Roller Babes. Betties.
Roller Betties, yes.
Roller
and as
Betties.
the penalty box was getting lonely, we are sending Isahella Vicious over to keep it company. 4 points for Kelsey later as she breaks through, and another 4 for Breaker Baker as she rolls by on her third scoring pass.
Kelsey later just pushing up the front, trying to get past that last blocker, trying to push that out of play. Nice bridging being done by Bellingham.
Miata Smakia with some excellent work just controlling the jammer tonight. She has been hips on hips with the jammer almost every jam that she's been in. Just skating along, slowing her down, positionally blocking, not needing to hit her as long as she can slow her down. Finally, Kelsey later is through, having picked up her 4. And Breaker Baker rolling through on her 5th scoring pass, I believe that would be. Picking up 4. She grabbed a 5th point earlier. And that takes the Bellingham Roller Betties over the 400 mark to 405 to 170 for the Rodeo City Roller Girls as we drop under a minute to go in the game. Warpaint Wendy with the Jammer Star for Rodeo City against Ziggy Star Crush on what will very likely be the last jam of the evening. And Warpaint Wendy sprinting through the inside as the pack had lined up at the pivot line. She saw an opening and she took it. And she is lead jammer. Meanwhile, Ziggy Star Crush getting bumped to the outside, has to recycle back to the back of the pack, but finds a line on the inside as all of her blockers were tied up trying to keep Warpaint Wendy from getting through. But through she gets and picks up the 5-point Grand Slam. Meanwhile, Ziggy Star Crush also through with 4. And Warpaint Wendy calls off the jam. And as the official clock had run out, that is our unofficial final. Let's give a warm round of applause for both teams for their excellent play this weekend. And come on out to the track to give a high five.
You gotta love
All right, we're going to wait for, I think it's pretty safe to say that Bellingham Roller Betties...
I think that is safe to say. Let's give a big round of applause for your victors, the Bellingham Roller Betties. And an equally warm round of applause and a big high five for their opponents, all the way from Ellensburg, the Rodeo City Roller Girls, who will be taking their high five in a clockwise direction, completely breaking Derby protocol.
You know, actually, I think they're resetting Derby protocol because they're having fun doing it, and ultimately, that's what it's all about.
And that's how they roll in Ellensburg. They just are a little bit off. Thank you, everyone, for a great weekend. Thank you for coming and observing this game. I am Scott Chicken. With me is Dick Pounder. He gets to fly back to Canada tomorrow. I just have to go take a ferry to Seattle.
Lucky you. Oh, yeah, we're heading into Seattle tomorrow and then flying out from there. I'm hoping it's warmed up a degree or two back in Canada, but I want to thank the hosts for having me down here. Big thanks to Phil Dirt, probably the only time he ever gets thanked. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a blast. I'm tired. I'm going to drink.
All right, everyone, last call for or last warning, at least on this track, for the after party. After party coming up as soon as the Lava City Roller Dolls, Emerald City Roller Girls bout ends on track 1. That will be at McLeod's, 2901 Perry Avenue in Bremerton. It's number 13. If it turns out to be an apartment building, just knock on the door and tell them Phil Dirt sent you, and they will let you in.